Hey YouTube, Rook here from Rook Geek Goodness, my little channel on the web for all things geeky and cool. And welcome back, guys, to the action figure review. Yes, I know, I don't do a whole lot of action figure reviews on my channel. Yes, I'm guilty of it myself. I just don't get around to as much as I really want to. And I have stuff kind of pulled aside. I'm going to be doing action figures in the next couple weeks, trying to get caught up a little bit, doing DC figures, some Star Wars figures. But this particular DC figure, as well as his counterpart, I picked up these two guys on a recent toy hunt to Tate's Comics prior to all the craziness that happened with COVID-19 and coronavirus. Who are we talking about? The DC's Essentials 7-inch Green Lantern Hal Jordan figure. They call this the DC Collectibles Essential figure. This was prior to the DC Direct change. This is what it was called originally. Now it became DC Essential. It's going to be switched back to DC Direct in a few months. Why the name change? I'm not entirely sure. Probably legality reasons, I'm assuming. But there's a lot of pros and cons about this figure. I watched several reviews, looked at the figures. It's going to be a first impressions breakdown segment. With that being said, we're going to do a full breakdown of this figure. We're going to look at the packaging as a whole. We'll look at the paint and articulation, and conclude in final thoughts for you, the viewer. Should you spend the money and pick up the DC's Essentials Green Lantern Hal Jordan figure? Stay tuned, guys. We'll go to a breakdown. Alright guys, we're in our breakdown segment looking at the DC's Essential Green Lantern Hal Jordan 7-inch figure from the DC Collectibles line. And the very first thing we do in a breakdown segment is look at the packaging and presentation. This is a really cool window box display. I love the packaging, the way this thing looks. Of course, at the top we talked about it has DC's Essentials there. Apologies for the glare. Green Lantern Hal Jordan over here. Again, nice window box display. DC Collectibles here. It says direct from the source. Number 19 in the series. Over here we have a nice side shot of Green Lantern Hal Jordan. Over here we have the DC's logo right here. And down here we have number 19, as I mentioned before. On here we have a little write-up of Hal Jordan and the figures that are available in this particular wave. Of course, we have Sinestro, Batman, which I think is Nightfall Batman, yep, and Catwoman, a more traditional version of Catwoman. So, pretty good figure the way it looks in the packaging. Let's get him out of the packaging and continue the breakdown segment. Alright guys, we have the DC's Essential Green Lantern Hal Jordan in the 7-inch scale out of packaging. Now, the very first thing we do when we take a figure out of packaging is look at the paint and articulation. But before we do anything like that, let's take a step back and get a composition of what this figure looks like. Again, he's in the 7-inch scale. He looks really good. Love the way he looks in the traditional green, black, and white deco that Green Lantern has for Hal Jordan. Great lantern symbol right there in his chest, painted in place. It's not sculpted. Looks really good. Next, I want to really focus on that head sculpt. That head sculpt is probably one of, if not the best painted head sculpts I've ever seen, or sculpted head sculpts I've ever seen. They did a dynamite job, DC's Essentials, DC Direct, on this head sculpt. It looks really good. I would say on par or even better than Mattel's head sculpt. It looks really good, as I mentioned before. The color green, you may or may not notice, is looking a little bit light to you on screen. When I hold this figure in hand, it's much deeper in green for color. It looks kind of like it's coming off as a light green. It's much deeper in green than what you see currently on screen. As I mentioned, that head sculpt looks really good. And there's a lot of cool stuff they packed into this figure, which we'll talk about, both pros and cons. Speaking of cons, let's talk about the articulation. For one point, we'll hit that right now. It's the neck. This neck is way too big for this figure. It is way too tall on the post. This should have stopped about here. I'll go over here so you can see what I'm talking about. This neck should have stopped about here. About a half of this size or a third of this size, this neck is too tall for this figure. Why they made it this high, I don't know. It looks very weird. Now, articulation for this figure, let's talk about that now. Head can bend up and down and spin 360. You can kind of get him into a flight pose if you pull the head all the way back. You have to break this joint in. It's very stiff, I noticed. Arms can spin 360 here, and they can go out to a full T. He does have swivel at the bicep 360 with a double jointed elbow right here. Great amount of articulation coming from DC Direct, mind you, DC Essential. Usually they have issues with articulation. I would say this articulation is on par with, I would say, Mattel or Hasbro. There's no, right here, forearm articulations. This is all one solid piece for the white glove. The hands can spin 360, and you can bend the wrist. There is paint on the ring. It is sculpted. It might be difficult to notice here, but it is, they did put a bit of paint in there. It is sculpted in place. Might not be coming across very well on camera. The only issue I really would have here, besides that it does spin 360, these seem to be very weak pegs on these hands. I'm concerned that it will break. This hand here, the left hand, which would be the right hand for you, is sort of this outstretched hand pose like this. Why they made an outstretched hand pose like this, I don't know. And that will bring me to another part I want to talk about shortly, and we'll get to that after we complete the articulation. This is kind of surprising when we get to the chest crunch, because he has a double clicking articulation when it comes to his chest. Move his arms down, move them back so you can see what I'm talking about. He has a double clicking articulation in his chest crunch. You have one joint here, one joint here. Most of the time, you don't really see that happening with action figures, though you get one chest crunch, and that's it. So if you move them back, and you'll notice here, you'll see a joint, which gives you this range of articulation right here and right here. So when you bend it, you'll see the joint, it's linked to these pegs here and here, which gives you that level of articulation. Very, very cool amount of articulation they put right there. Bring him back to center. Arms are going to go up. He can spin 360, which again, you have that weird cut here. I've always talked about it. If you kind of get him off center, off kilter, it'll look really, really weird. You can see it right there, what I'm talking about. If you kind of get him off kilter, it will look weird. So getting him in dynamic poses, you want to get something head on. Legs have a decent amount of articulation. You can get a decent kick right here. The legs can spin 360 at the upper thigh. You have a double jointed knee right here. The shin right here is sculpted. This they could have kind of cheesed it, and it could have just put paint here, but they didn't do that. They gave us paint, an actual physical sculpt right here with the wing boots, and I'm very happy they did that. They do spin 360 at the shin here, and you have foot articulation spinning here 360, and you have up and down, it looks like, hopefully up and down, but I don't want to push the joint. There it goes. It was off the peg. So you do have 360, a sort of floating ball joint. It was kind of off kilter, but you can see me spinning at 360. Now, a lot of people have complained about the prior Nightfall Batman with these hinges on the ankles, and it would kind of buckle. Right now, I'm not seeing any issues right now with the articulation with the feet. But this thing is packed to the gills with articulation. I'm very, very surprised they gave us that level of articulation. The biggest complaint next to the open hand and the high neck joint is probably no accessories. If you're going to call this quote-unquote the essential line, you expect this to be the creme de la creme of action figures, the greatest Green Lantern figure ever made. But to call it essentials and have an open hand like this with no accessories I cannot let that go. That is a complete misstep for DC's Essential. Having an open hand with no kind of gripped hand for a lantern. Yes, you could probably pop this hand out, put another hand which would kind of match this color, and give him a lantern. You probably could do that from maybe an old Mattel figure or an older DC Direct figure. You could go that direction. But to me, to not have an accessory is inexcusable. Why? I don't know. And this is a premium figure format. This is about a $28 figure when I got it at Tate's Comics. It is not a cheap figure. You can probably find it cheaper online, but I spent 28 bucks for this figure. But he's a very, 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 very good figure, all things considered. I would say I would recommend it if you don't have a Green Lantern figure, or if you have one, you're looking for a specific look. Maybe this figure should be in your wheelhouse. And I do think it's a great figure. You should pick it up if you like Green Lantern Hal Jordan. With that being said, let's go to final thoughts and wrap up this video. Alright guys, final thoughts on the DC's Essentials 7-inch Green Lantern Hal Jordan figure. Should you buy this figure? As I mentioned in the breakdown segment, if you don't have a Green Lantern figure, or you want a specific look for Hal Jordan, this might be a figure up your alley. If you already have Green Lantern Hal Jordan, and you might have this as a pass. Mainly because, again, bad neck post right here, no accessories, high price point. This might be a pass for you if you already have a figure in your collection that is Green Lantern Hal Jordan. Again, I do like it. I think it's a step up from the other DC Direct, now DC Essential, again, soon to be DC Direct again, figure. Most of the time the articulation is crap. But this one is packed with articulation. I think maybe between 26 and 28 points of articulation. And coming from DC Direct, mind you, is a step in the right direction, at least from all things considered. So I do hope you like this video review of DC Essentials Hal Jordan in the 7-inch scale. Yes, I'm not a fan of 7-inch, but that's what it is. I hope you do like it, like I said. Remember to click the like button at the bottom of the page. Click the subscribe button. When you subscribe to the channel, click the bell to be notified of my latest videos. And of course, last but not least, you can click Windows over here to watch more of my content. Take care, guys. See you next video. And bye-bye.